I've been suffering from a severe case of writer's block for months when it came to just the opening of this review script. I've been doing nothing but stare at this blank Google Doc with no thoughts at all. I haven't been able to think of anything that does this series justice. For the last few months, this script has been an anomaly. Speaking of anomalies, Primeval is a sci-fi— yes, that's the opening gag I'm going with. Primeval is a sci-fi television series made by Impossible Pictures, the same people who made the Walking With series and Prehistoric Park, which ran for 5 seasons airing from 2007 to 2011, as well as a Canadian spin-off which had 1 season that aired from 2012 to 2013, but we don't talk about that one. The original series follows Professor Nick Cutter and his research team as they try to deal with anomalies, rips in the fabric of time that allow creatures from the past to cause havoc in the present. It is up to them to detect and contain these incursions, as well as keeping this monumental discovery away from the public. This show is, in my opinion, the greatest piece of non-documentary televised media. Or, at the very least, I think that for the first 2 seasons. It has everything I want out of a television series. It has an interesting plot, dinosaurs, likable characters, dinosaurs, an interesting concept with fascinating lore, and have I mentioned yet that this show has dinosaurs? And yet, despite having everything a show could ever need to be successful, it's been seemingly forgotten. Not to say it doesn't still have fans, as there are plenty of other YouTubers out there who still make videos on the series to this day, and it has a larger cult following than a lot of other forgotten franchises from this era, but in the eyes of both modern television and the general public, it's as if this series never existed. So my goal with this series is to review the entire show, to try to introduce new people to this franchise. Eventually. I'm still recovering after the whole CapCut fiasco, so it might be a while before I get back to making full reviews on the regular, but just know that this is what I'll be working on whenever I get the chance from now on. Yes, I said series. There's no way I could review the entire show in one video, as there's just so much here to discuss. So instead, I'm going to spend the next few months, if not years of my life, reviewing each episode of this obscure show, one episode at a time, for my audience made up mostly of Transformers fans. I'm sure my time and effort won't all be for nothing. In today's video, I will cover the first episode of Series 1, which first aired exactly 18 years ago as of this video going live. And this episode may be my favorite episode of the entire show. Some people might think it's a bad thing that this show peaks in the first episode, but for me at least, it just gets me hyped every time I rewatch the series. As if we were going through an anomaly of our own, let's go back to 2007 to begin our retrospective of this forgotten masterpiece. This is Primeval Series 1, Episode 1. We open in a dark parking lot when— oh my god, is that a gorgonopsid? Take note, future Paleo series. If you want to instantly get me hooked on a new show, give me a gorgonopsid in the first 10 seconds and I'll immediately give you a standing ovation. Actually, I think opening immediately on a prehistoric creature is probably the best thing a series like this can do to start. Future episodes will often have a slow build-up to the reveal of the creature, which is usually quite effective and adds a bit of mystery to the episode, like in episodes 5 and 6 of Series 1. However, for the first episode, you want your audience to be instantly hooked and engaged right from the get-go, and what better way to do that than by using one of the most bizarre and terrifying terrestrial predators the world has ever seen. On the topic of the gorgonopsid, it is stunning. Life on our planet might have the most accurate gorgonopsid design I've ever seen in a piece of paleomedia, but this one is my personal favorite. Which, speaking of, on the topic of scientific accuracy, I'm going to be much more lenient on this series than I am with most other paleomedia. I know, but let me explain. The reason I'm less concerned about accuracy is that this show lacks it in order to enhance its own style. Every single creature in this show follows a unique design philosophy, allowing for both creature designs you can't see anywhere else, while also making it so that every creature still looks like they fit in the same universe. The show uses its inaccuracies to further enhance the story of each episode, especially when the show begins using anomalies as the explanation for myths and legends. Why is Dracorex given additional spines and sails not seen on the real animal? So that way it's more believable that medieval humans would mistake it for a dragon. This is actually a problem I have with Primeval New World, as that show designs fall under like 3 or 4 different design philosophies, and as such feel very disjointed from one another. But that's really just a nitpick compared to the boatload of other problems with that series. Furthermore, I think that this show is slightly excused from scientific accuracy just on the fact that it's not a documentary. If you're making something educational, then obviously you want to be as accurate as possible compared to the current understanding of your topic. But for a sci-fi drama that isn't pretending to be educational in the slightest, then I think some artistic liberty is accepted. Remember, this was made by the same crew as the Walking With series. If they wanted to be scientifically accurate, they could be.
Are you sure about that?
But they deliberately decided to go with this more stylistic approach, which I think is admirable. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying that a show like this couldn't have worked with scientifically accurate creature designs. Hell, one of the best episodes of Primeval New World depicted a surprisingly accurate Lycanops design. But going down this more stylistic route allowed the creators to be extremely creative when it came to creature design and how it affects the story, and overall makes the show better and more unique by doing so. With all that said, though, does that mean I'm going to completely ignore any scientific inaccuracies going forward?
Ha! No!
The skin is way too rough and scaly, it's horribly oversized and shrink-wrapped, and there's a good possibility that gorgonopsids were covered in hair. But again, some of these choices are deliberate. I mean, when was the last time you saw something the size of a big cat throw a car so high in the air that it fricking explodes on impact? We see that a mysterious woman is being chased by the gorgonopsid, trying to find salvation in a nearby store. Rude. I don't care if the store's closed, that's no excuse to ignore someone's cry for help. Huh? I don't get paid enough for this shit. With no other option, the woman makes a break for the nearby forest. Now, drop that kick-ass intro! We jump forward 8 years later, where we are introduced to our main characters, Professor Nick Cutter, his assistant Stephen Hart, and his student Connor Temple. Or at least he would be a student if Cutter actually did his job.
Why don't I recognise him? You've never actually turned up for the seminars.
Tell me what this is.
A fish?
Obviously. It's a Sarcopterygian. No trace of them in the fossil record for 70 million years, and then suddenly one of them just pops up in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Totally inexplicable in modern evolutionary terms. See, Darwin provides most of the answers. It's the pieces that don't fit that interest me.
I love this line. In only a few sentences, you already are told everything you need to know about Cutter, why he's fascinated by unexplained gaps in the fossil record, and how said fascination is what will lead him to discover everything he does about the anomalies going forward. Connor shows Cutter a newspaper story about an unknown monster attack. Cutter is at first disinterested, seeing it as a hoax, until Connor brings up that the sighting was just outside the Forest of Dean.
If we leave now, we could be there by lunch.
We then meet another main cast member, Abby Maitland, working at the Wellington Zoo. Her boss tells her that he's having to slim down the reptile program, putting her job under fire. Before they can discuss it further, however, Abby looks at a photo of a boy and a peculiar lizard. Abby offers to go pick up the lizard, wanting to learn more about it.
Anyway, so about this attachment.
Yes, a 6-month project studying the life cycle of parasites in elephant dung.
Sounds unmissable.
Nick, Steven, and Connor go to the site and see the carnage caused by the creature. Why do I keep referring to it as the creature? We all know it was the gorgonopsid.
You know, if you want my opinion, I think it's... You don't, do you?
Connor, and by proxy the audience, are told that the reason Cutter is so interested in the Forest of Dean is because his wife, Helen, disappeared in the forest 8 years ago without a trace. We jump back to Abby, who is just arriving at the home of the boy and his lizard. The boy, named Ben, shows her around before introducing her to the odd little reptile.
His name's Rex. Found him in the forest.
If I'm right, you've discovered a completely unique species.
Huh, cool.
As Ben is showing Abby where he found Rex, they find a dead cow in the branch of a tree. Huh. I guess gorgonopsids stored their food in a similar fashion to leopards. Neat. We cut back to Cutter when...
Don't panic. Just told that slime ball over there you were my boyfriend.
Well, that's one way to introduce a character. The woman is named Claudia Brown. Get used to hearing that name, they become Cutter's 2 favorite words for the next 2 seasons. Anyway, she wants Cutter to denounce the creature's existence and say it's a hoax, but Cutter is actually starting to believe there might be something here. So Cutter offers her to join the search.
I suppose I owe it to the taxpayer to do more than sit in my room and suck the minibar dry.
While running away from Abby and Rex like a dumbass, Ben stumbles upon something strange in the forest. Eventually, the main group stumbles upon the dead cow. Additionally, Connor's compass appears to be going haywire for some reason. Ben runs back home, but pricks his finger on a thorn bush along the way, and this one drop of blood is enough to make him the gorgonopsid's main target for the rest of the episode. The gorgonopsid tries to attack Ben in his house, but is defeated by a sound system and a plasma ball. Oh, gee, so threatening. Back in the Forest of Dean, Abby and Rex stumble upon a scutosaurus, as well as the rest of the cast. This scutosaurus design is interesting. And by that I mean it barely looks like a real scutosaurus. And I'm not saying that because it's oversized. I'm saying that because the key features of Scutosaurus are either reduced or not present at all on this design. It just looks more like a generic reptilian herbivore. Hell, even Connor mistook it for a dinosaur at first, which is odd considering he's essentially the moderator of the Walking With Wiki.
Come on. It looks like a dinosaur and behaves like a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur.
Actually, I know exactly what this design reminds me of. You know how a lot of the most iconic D&D monsters, owlbears, boulets, etc., were originally based on those cheap plastic dinosaur or monster packs you could buy at dollar stores? This looks like someone bought one of those packs, pulled out the most generic herbivorous dinosaur figure possible, and used that as the inspiration. Again, I must preference that I don't hate this design, it just really doesn't do Scutosaurus justice. But also, despite it looking nothing like what it's supposed to, it still follows the same design cues as every other creature, and doesn't stick out amongst the creature cast because of it. They return to Ben's place where he tips the gang off about how he saw the past.
There was desert and rocks and things.
I blame the telly.
Cutter tries to scare the Scutosaurus into running to where it came from, leading the gang straight to the anomaly.
Where's it gone?
Home.
The next day, Connor discovers that the anomaly creates a powerful magnetic field, which is why his compass was acting up earlier.
Brilliant. This is brilliant. Oh, that was my front door key.
So we have to go now.
At the home office, we are introduced to the best character.
James Lester, I'll be in charge of coordinating our response. You spend your entire career planning for just about every crisis imaginable, up to and including alien invasion. Then this happens. So much for thinking outside the bloody box.
Cutter goes on to explain what's going on to Lester, by mocking him to his face.
Remarkable theory is correct. What immediate risks? Famine, war, pestilence, the end of the world as we know it. The usual stuff. I think I could do without the facetiousness.
Well, I could do without standing in some anemic office in Whitehall talking to a civil service pen pusher when I should be exploring the most significant phenomenon in the history of science.
Cutter then says that he intends to find out what happened to his wife via going through the anomaly. In the home office's lab, Rex is being examined. Annoyed at being poked and prodded, and because none of these supposed experts knew that the lizard with giant wings on its back was capable of flight, Rex easily escapes with the help of some kick-ass music.
He can fly. Pretty well.
Rex almost escapes out a window, but is luckily persuaded by Abby to stay. Rex's DNA proves that he is in fact from the past, and so Lester allows Cutter to go on his exploratory mission into the anomaly.
I'm taking the lizard back. Creatures that don't belong here should be returned to their natural habitat.
Remember this line. I'm going to bring it back up a lot throughout this series. Apparently, Ben is still an important character, as the gorgonopsid tracks him all the way to his school. What does this thing have against this kid? All of this from a single drop of blood? Or maybe its pride is still sore from being defeated by literal children's toys. Thankfully for Ben and his teacher, they're saved by Steven the Badass.
Pick on someone your own size.
Also, how did the teachers not hear this thing break into the school when Steven could hear it all the way from out in the forest? Luckily for Steven, even though the gorgonopsid seemed to have every intention of eating him, it just runs away after knocking down the door. Back at the anomaly, Cutter is getting prepared to go through it, but is told he will have to take an escort with him for protection. This is when we are formally introduced to Captain Ryan, who acts as this season's resident military guy.
Whatever happens, bring him back.
And so, Cutter, Ryan, and Rex go through the anomaly and into the Permian. You may have noticed that the Permian looks a little familiar. That's because both this and Life on Our Planet used La Palma Island as the filming location for their Permian segments. It perfectly captures the arid and volcanic landscapes of the Permian, and it's cool to see that it's the go-to filming location for this part of prehistory. Back on the other side of the anomaly, Connor notices that the anomaly is no longer attracting his pen, presumably meaning the magnetic field, and by proxy the anomaly as a whole, is becoming weaker. Back in the Permian, Ryan finds the remains of a human camp, and they realize that they aren't the first people to travel through an anomaly. But it's not just an abandoned camp. As it turns out, there are also some human remains. Though luckily for Cutter, he examines the body and discovers that these remains don't belong to his missing wife.
Is it her?
No, it's a man.
Cutter, now knowing his wife is still out there somewhere, wants to continue the search, but Ryan says it's time for them to go. Cutter won't cooperate, so Ryan does the only logical thing by pistol-whipping him in the back of the head. The anomaly begins to close, but Cutter still refuses to go back without finding Helen. So Ryan does the thing he knows will make Cutter go back through.
Alright, you stay, I stay. That's just childish.
This scene perfectly shows how Ryan isn't just the guy with a gun. He knows Cutter's conscience of trapping someone else with him in the past will get the better of him, and uses that to get his way. He's a clever and heroic character, fully knowing that if he can't break through to Cutter, that he will be stuck in the Permian forever. But he does it anyways. It's a shame he's so underutilized for the rest of the season, because I think he had a lot of potential right out of the get-go in the first episode. Luckily for the both of them, Cutter finally caves, and the two run back through the anomaly. However, they weren't the only ones to make it back through.
Looks like a military camp.
Unfortunately, the celebration of their safe return is interrupted by the gorgonopsid, who's probably pissed it missed its one-way ticket back home, and decides to take its anger out on the nearby humans, aka our protagonists. Did you hear that? That was the very first use of the Wilhelm scream in this series, which, trust me, they use it a lot. Though, they use it very inconsistently, as they tend to use it when someone is killed off, but other times they don't. So, I've thought of a little game we could play. I'm going to add the Wilhelm scream to every casualty that occurs in this show, and it'll be up to you guys to determine whether or not it was actually in the episode. Of course, that doesn't matter for this specific episode since they already used it on the one and only death of the episode, but it's just something to look out for in my next few reviews. Luckily, Steven comes in at the last second to save everyone by running over the poor thing like a madman. Oh, it turns out it's not dead. Well, that's great. This means you guys can easily contain it in its injured state and return to its home time once the anomaly reopens, or you could just shoot it dead. Okay, I guess that works. What was it Cutter said earlier again?
Creatures that don't belong here should be returned to their natural habitat.
Yeah, apparently that doesn't apply to this one. In the morning, back at the home office, they were able to uncover the film of the camera found in the Permian, confirming it belonged to Helen.
Some force out there ripped the boundaries of space and time to shreds. Maybe it's happened before, in which case every single thing we thought we knew about the universe is wrong. Or this is the first time, in which case, what changed? What happens next? Believe me, it's very, very far from over.
God, I love that line. But the episode isn't over yet, as back in Cutter's lab, he gets the sense that he isn't alone. He then oddly finds a still-living ammonite placed on his desk, and the sound of someone running out the door. Cutter chases them, only to find out that that person is in fact... Helen! So that was Series 1, Episode 1 of Primeval, and my Christ, it's still amazing. It is everything that the first episode of a television show should be. It introduces us to the world, our main cast, and leaves hints to the mysteries that will be explored in future episodes. Not to mention, the star creatures of the episode are all from the Permian, which, if you know me, that's the best way possible to get me invested in a series. Sure, there are some odd things here and there that could have maybe been improved, but most of that just stems from the fact that this is the first episode of a complex sci-fi drama, and I think in general it does a better job juggling all of these aspects in an understandable way better than most. For me, this episode is always a treat to revisit, and gets me probably a little overhyped towards rewatching the rest of the show. I give it a... Actually, I'm not going to rate it out of 10. You see, the thing is, if I were to try and give each episode a number rating, it would get pretty repetitive, especially since I consider pretty much every episode of Series 1 and 2 either a 9 or 10 out of 10. So instead, I'm only going to be giving each series as a whole a number review once I've reviewed all of its contents. But in that case, what's my plan for the individual episodes? That's right, I'm doing a tier list. And in my opinion, Series 1, Episode 1 is easily an S-tier episode. Truly an excellent episode to start off this incredible series.